Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ajua. In this video, I want to share my experience based on work tests with some very viral Middle Eastern fragrances. I know they have been popularized in the past couple of months and weeks, and I'm here to share my thoughts on them. I'm also going to compare two of them with the original fragrances. I think three of them I'm going to compare with the original fragrances and give you the similarities and where I think they fall short, and if they are indeed accurate inspirations or dupe, or if they are worth it, in general. So the first is going to be the Queen of Silk, and in this instance I'm going to compare Avant silk from Maison Alhambra. And the bottle is so beautiful. I like the color. It just follows the same theme as the Queen of Silk. I don't have a full bottle of Queen of Silk, but I have a decant, not a decant, I mean a sample size here, which I have tested. And for me, Queen of Silk is not one of those fragrances I find super girly and ultra feminine. It lays quite matured to me. It doesn't give me fun and girly and flirty. It is more of a matured saffron, tuberose, woody scent. It doesn't necessarily remind me of any single fragrance I own, in my collection. However, it gives me the same impression of a fragrance like Lane from Lattafa, the same characteristic, not necessarily the scent profile. It gives me that same matured tuberose, jasmine. This one doesn't contain jasmine, but it has the note of tuberose and saffron and some myrrh or incense. And that is the same accord or note I find in a fragrance like Lane. So it gives me the same characteristics, be it is matured. It does not smell super mass appealing. It is not sweet. There's very little sweetness to Queen of Silk. Not this one, the dupe. Very little sweetness to it. Even the original one does not have a lot of sweetness to it. I think one of the most significant differences I find between the original one and this inspired by version is the fact that I get a very beautiful orange blossom or something quite orangey, like a floral orange nuance in this, and it's even listed that it has the note of orange blossom, whereas in this Avant silk it is visibly missing. I don't find anything orange at all. I get a saffron, I get that floral tuberosity, but it's not as creamy. I would go as far to say at this point I'm not really getting that 100% Queen of Silk vibe from Avant silk, although on its own it's a very beautiful fragrance. But I think I'll rate it as at most 80% similarity, whereas I find the saffron note in this one a lot more stronger than I perceive in the original Queen of Silk. It is saffron heavy, but there's something about this saffron in the inspired by version that feels like on steroids, and it's less creamy. The creamy tuberose sort of feel. The florals are there, but I think the leading ingredient is going to be the saffron. I have this small vial of saffron here that as soon as I sprayed this one, I was like, yeah, this is saffron. When I smell this saffron, it just reminds me of Avant silk, how the saffron interprets in this. It gives me that raw on steroid saffron, whereas in Queen of Silk it feels a lot more elevated, a lot more smoother, and that orange flower thing that I find in this one I don't find in this. The patchouli earthy notes, yes, both give me that. They are both strong, bold, confident fragrances, but this, of course, this one has a bit of a screechy vibe to it, and I think it's going to do a lot better. It feels like it has potential to macerate and smoothing out and then give me something much more similar to Queen of Silk. But for right now, I feel it is giving me at most 80% similarity, and it's a very beautiful scent, but it is missing that orange flower. It is missing that. It is also saffron, much more heavy on the saffron and a little screechy on that saffron. I'm just going to be hopeful that after aging or going through the process of aging and maturation, it is going to be smoothing out. But for now, those are the most significant differences I find between these two. It reminds me of it, but it's not giving me 100%. Do I like it? Yes, I do, but I think I prefer the original slightly better than this dupe. I know Avant Silk has been considered one of the better dupes when it comes to Queen of Silk from Middle Eastern houses, but I still feel it has a way to go. It has to go through some aging because I'm not really feeling it as much as I thought I would. I like it, but I think it has potential. I think it has potential to blossom into something amazing. The screechiness of the saffron, I am going to bank on it, that is going to smoothen out. Probably I'll get a lot more of the tuberose in it. Probably I'll get a lot more of that orange blossom. Probably that incensey myrrh, nuance. I'm going to get it a little, but I'm not getting that as much, as much as I get from the original one. However, in the end, they are going to remind you of each other, but I don't think it is giving me 100% Queen of Silk. Does it really deserve the hype? As a fragrance on its own, I think I like it, but as a dupe, I don't think it is the most accurate dupe I have come across yet. I'm going to give it like a 7 out of 10, and even 7 out of 10 is because I'm being hopeful that after maturation it's going to do a lot more better. So that is my thought on Avant Silk. I think it's a very beautiful scent. If you love the florals, you want something a lot more mature, a lot more grown up, a lot more dressy, a lot more bold. It's very confident and bold. I'm going to give it to that, but it's not going to be your very mass appealing, flirty one. It is more matured, and it gives me that similar vibe of the lean in terms of its character, the nature, but not the scent profile. So that is going to be my take on Avant Silk. I think for now it is a 7 out of 10, but I'm not going to say it is blind buy worthy. I think you need to sample this one, even the original one. The original one feels a lot more smoother and slightly more sweeter. There's a little bit of a sweetness to the original one that I don't get in this one, but I'm very hopeful that after maturation it's going to do well. But as a fragrance on its own or as a standalone, I think it is a very beautiful scent. Just that I feel it is not going to be for everybody. It's not going to be for everybody. It's not super mass appealing. And that is going to be my take on Avant Silk from Maison Alhambra. So let me move on to another one here. Khamrah Dukhan. This is a very exciting one. First of all, I'm going to say of the 3 Khamrahs, this currently is my favorite, the Khamrah Dukhan. It is currently my favorite of them all. I have the 2, the original Khamrah, the Kawa, and then this one. The only difference I find between this and, let's say, I think this is the most similar to the original Khamrah than the Kawa. The Kawa has a different vibe because of the coffee feel, and it is the most spicy one with the cardamom and the cinnamon, whereas the original Khamrah is all about the sticky dates, that praline, sticky dates, syrupy, gooey. That is essentially what the original Khamrah is. Khamrah Dukhan is giving me the original Khamrah with an orange shisha accord. If you remember Mashubaya from Lattafa, which has that apple shisha accord, as soon as I smelled this one, it reminded me of Mashubaya from Lattafa with the apple shisha accord. So I will replace the apple shisha accord with an orange shisha accord. That smoky thing is supposed to have gives me more of a shisha vibe than an actual smoke. It gives me the same sort of feeling I get from Mashubaya with the apple shisha accord. I can smell it, even reminds me of that. As soon as I sprayed Dukhan, I was like, Mashubaya from Lattafa. It's very similar in its nature, the same tobacco, the spice. There's a bit of spice to it. I think this one has some pimento to give it a bit of spice, which I get. It also has some other spices, but that smoky thing is not going to give you your by the fireplace amia oud intense smokiness. It is more like a cigarette shisha sort of thing to me than an actual smoke. It doesn't come across as a heavy smoky nuance, but it just reminds me of an orange shisha accord. It has a very beautiful undertone of this mandarin oranges. And that is one of the most significant difference between this one and the original Khamrah. So it's about 80% of the original sticky date Khamrah. And then you add in the oranges, and then that orange shisha accord, essentially with a hint of spice, And to me, I think currently this one is a very beautiful one, and I'll consider it my best camera yet. Or at this point, between the Kawa and the original one, I prefer the Kawa a lot more than the original. But this one also has something which feels a lot more smoother and a lot more sultry, a lot more sweeter. It's much more sweeter than the original one. And then the Kawa just has that cardamom spice, and then the ginger and a bit of coffee to it, whereas the original one is just sticky dates, and this one is like the sticky dates nature of the original Khamrah, and then oranges and a shisha accord, and that to me is a very beautiful scent. I think this is a very unisex scent. It doesn't give me masculine, although a lot of people reporting that it leans a lot more masculine to them. It doesn't give me masculine per se. It gives me more unisex. It gives me more. I even feel the Khamrah Kawa leans much more masculine than this one, in my opinion. I feel this one is super unisex. It is a very beautiful, smooth, like very smooth. That is not to say the other ones are not smooth, but there's something about this that feels very smooth, like seamless. It just flows, like it flows seamlessly. Do you need this one? To me, I think I need a full bottle of this, just because I love how this one interprets with the shisha accord. But if you are someone who is like bored of the Khamrah DNA, you might not find this one any interesting, because it will remind you of the OG Khamrah. It will not remind you necessarily of the Khamrah Kawa, because this one feels a lot more closer to the original Khamrah than the Khamrah Kawa. So if you feel you are quite bored with the Khamrah DNA, you might want to skip this one. But if you love that DNA and you think you want something with a twist, then you can go for this one, with the shisha accord, that orange. It makes it quite different. So yeah, you can have those three, Khamrahs. I'm also going to go with another one here, which has been compared to D&G's Devotion, and that is going to be Floral Dedication from Valor. I think that's the brand, Valor. And I'm also going to compare it to Victoria from Lattafa. These two fragrances have been compared to Devotion, so I'm going to give you my take on these two and which of them, in my opinion, is a similar or a much better alternative. So when it comes to Victoria, it reminds me of Devotion. However, there is something about it that also takes its different direction altogether, and then it deviates. Whereas in D&G's original version, it's more about that lemon meringue. This one has a lot of lemon meringue, but I swear to God, I don't get anything lemon meringue. If there's anything like orange meringue, that is what I perceive in Devotion. It is all about an orange accord that I don't find necessarily in the Devotion. The Devotion also has some, I think it has some oranges, but I don't get it as much as I do in Victoria. And that is what gives it a different direction to me. As soon as you spray Devotion or Victoria, it is going to put you in that similar mind space as Devotion, but it doesn't necessarily give me 100% Devotion. It doesn't give me that, but it's more on a different take. It's more orangey than lemon, in my opinion, and that is why, in as much as I feel it reminds me of Devotion, it does not necessarily give me 100% Devotion. It's all about that mandarin or the orange here with the vanilla, and that neroli thing, what it's promised to have, which is the lemon meringue. I don't get it at all, and it's more about orange meringue, in my opinion. Whereas when it comes to Floral Dedication from Valor, this to me leans much more closer to Devotion than Victoria. This could be a flanker. I would say Victoria could be a flanker to Devotion, but this is like a spot-on dupe, especially at the dry down. The opening of Floral Dedication is very screechy in a way. This is a very macerated decant, so I'm just giving you the real deal here. It's a very macerated one, and the opening still comes across as a bit synthetic, but it quickly fizzles out, and then you're left with that dry down, which is going to give you 95% Devotion. One of the most significant difference I find between Floral Dedication and Devotion is the fact that this one is slightly more zesty. There's a zesty. The lemon feels slightly zesty than the one I find in Devotion. And then Devotion, of course, is a lot more creamy and a lot more heavy, but this one feels slightly more zesty, but it dries down to that same Devotion vanilla, Devotion lemon meringue. In my opinion, Floral Dedication is a much better alternative to Devotion, whereas this one is more of a like a flanker, gives me like a flanker to Devotion. You can own both of these fragrances, there are some differences between them. You can own both of them, but I think of all the Devotion smell alikes that I have come across, I think Floral Dedication from Valor is the closest I have smelled to Devotion so far, whereas Victoria is giving me like a flanker to Devotion, but not necessarily the same thing, So yeah, do I think Victoria is worth it? I think as a standalone fragrance, it is. However, I feel with the price of Devotion, being lower because it's been around for a while, and when you go on the gray market, you can get some for around the $60 price points depending on the size. Maybe 50 ml you can get for around 60-70, and you consider the price of Victoria and you like the scent profile of Devotion, you might want to go with the original one, because the price of the Victoria is still on the higher side. It depends on which one you are getting and which one comes across as more cheaper. I know when these fragrances are a lot newer, they are a lot more expensive. So to me, I think if you can still find your Devotion around the $60 price mark, you might want to go for that. But if you are not finding it and you just want to go with the hype of Victoria, you might want to grab, Victoria. I don't think I'm going for a full bottle of Victoria just because I have Devotion, I have several other, fragrances along that same line. Just that this one is not lemon to me, although it will give you something that will remind you of a lemon meringue, but it's more about that orange. I get the orange a lot more than the lemon. I think Floral Dedication is very beautiful. If you can just go past the first few seconds of Floral Dedication, which comes across as a bit screechy to me, although very macerated, then you can enjoy the dry down that is going to give you almost 100% Devotion. So I think this is a good alternative if you are looking for a spot-on dupe, and if you want something with a twist, you might want to go with Victoria. And the last fragrance here is going to be from Fragrance World or FA Paris, Bouquet of Euphoria. I will do the review for this one a little later on, the cream of clouds. But this one has also been hyped up in the past. And to me, yes, I like this in a way, but one of the disadvantages, or one of the flaws I have noticed about this is the fact that it makes me a little nauseous. I like the concept of it. It's been known to remind you of the Yara, the original Yara, which I get it. To me, I think this one gives me like a much more elevated Yara, gives me Yara, but it feels a little more elevated. I can smell this one. It's like a happy Yara. It's much more loud. It's much more, I always say it's much more youthful, but there's something that makes me happy about this fragrance. But the sad part of it is that it makes me a bit nauseous. It doesn't have the note of milk, but there's something that is like creamy and fluffy about it that makes me a little nauseous, and that is the only reason I will not get a full bottle of this. But it follows along the lines of the Yaris, but it's like a more floral Yara. This one is known to have the note of heliotrope. I'm not sure how heliotrope is supposed to smell, but it gives me more of a floral Yara, and it's supposed to have some candied fruit. I'm not necessarily getting the candied fruit. I'm getting a fluffy, cloudy, milky, creamy, beautiful bouquet of flowers, which reminds me of spring. It just reminds me of spring, but there's something about a creamy, milky undertone to it that makes me a little nauseous. But I think it's a very beautiful scent. You can have this and own Yara at the same time. in as much as it reminds me of Yara, I think it is a different fragrance on its own. It has its own twist. I feel it is like a little more elevated than Yara. It makes me much more happier than Yara, you know. Yeah, and that is what I think about these fragrances. I feel this one is worth the hype, but not for me. You know, it is worth the hype with the concept of the Yara, but being a little more elevated and a lot more floral and giving me more of a spring vibe. I feel it is worth it, but I feel it is not for me because it makes me nauseous, you know. And I think that is what I have for you in this video today, and I hope this video found you well. Please do not forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I hope to see you in my next one. And please do not forget to give me your comments and let me know what you think about these fragrances if you have come across them. And I hope to see you in my next one. Take care. Bye bye.